Here. All right. I call to order the special public meeting of the Cincinnati Public School Board for May 17th, 2023. Glad everyone is here. Ms. Wagner, would you call the roll, please?
Fulton, Mr. Craig.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Dr. Moffitt. Here. Mr. Borowski.
Here.
Mrs. Weinberg. Here. President Lee.
Here. We have just a very short bit of business to do on the passing a treasurer's report here, and then we'll have time for a couple of executive session topics this afternoon. I'll just quickly, as we move past the priorities, people I really hope are getting contacted about one-on-ones. Some traffic on that, but I was talking with other folks, but not having happened yet. So if you have not heard yet about scheduling a one-on-one with Alma after this meeting is over, please let me know, because I want to make sure that's happening. On updating bylaws, I want to thank the policy committee for this part of the meeting, or the big part of the meeting on Friday. I want to thank everybody for getting their feedback in. I think it's really important to the chair and to his team. We have transportation and strategic planning on our agenda coming up for Monday. So all these things that the board has prioritized are really moving center. So thank you. I think we need a motion to adopt a report from the treasurer this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Craig. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Morosky. Is there any discussion on the report of the treasurer?
Yes.
Ms. Bolton.
Right. So, this is amendments to all the vendor contracts to finish out service for the year and to cover for summer scholars. There are quite a few then and nows. Not sure how to explain how it happens, but the $13 million worth of invoices showed up on our accounts payable desk a few weeks ago that had not been processed. And so this is covering those. Some of it was in the budget, but just not, the contracts hadn't been amended. Some of it goes above the budget. So I'm taking unspent monies from this year's budget to cover the difference. So this should be to finish out the rest of the year's service.
More questions there?
Yes. Year's service for what?
All the Yellow, Metro, UTS, Hightower,
All vendors?
all the transportation vendors.
All transportation vendors?
I received a call Friday night from our chief operating officer who had heard that one of our vendors was going to stop service because they couldn't make payroll. We were so far behind. So I will be issuing, assuming you approve this, I'll be issuing a $4 million check tomorrow.
Next.
Wow.
Because they didn't, they started the year with an estimate of contracts, and then I guess services changed. They didn't amend the contracts through the board approval, so that when the invoices started showing up, there wasn't enough money left on those original purchase orders. That makes sense? They should have done mid-year corrections on adding and amending the contract. So I think they started with a small estimate and forgot to amend it. And then it didn't become a problem until the invoice started piling up because they couldn't get paid. So in order for me to release an invoice for payment, the purchase order, the invoice, and the receiver all have to match, a three-way matching system, or a payment won't get cut.
So I just want to clarify for the record, because public information. So the error, if you want to call it, that was on their end because they didn't do the reporting in the way they wanted. But do we have a way of checking that or flagging that, or is there anything that we could have done so that we're not caught at the end of the year trying to catch up?
So we're putting steps in place to have monthly meetings. There was a turnover in personnel. We started the year having monthly meetings and turnover personnel, and then some of the meetings dropped, so we lost track of that. But we are putting monthly analysis in place to prevent this from ever happening again.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I just want to add a couple things there, and I think that, Jen,
you already said this. So for last year, the budget was $44 million for transportation. That was not inclusive at the time the budget was done. That was not inclusive of the increase of putting 7th and 8th grade students back on Metro, nor was it inclusive of moving from 1.25 to 1. So just in doing that alone, the difference is for the Metro passes, we pay $315. For the students to be on the buses per student is $2,300 on the yellow buses. So that's the difference in the cost as we're thinking about it. So I agree with what Jen said, but looking back, and I'm asking the team to do this now, over the last several years, and Jen has shared with me that at the end of each year, there has been a problem with transportation being over. But a part of that is from looking at where we are currently, there hasn't been a deep dive in what needs to happen to clean up what's happening in transportation along the way to make sure that we don't get to the end and there's the problem. So the check and balance piece and the consistent meetings I think is good, but I also think that we want to make sure that we acknowledge that the budget for last year didn't include initially all of the two main things that we did that caused the increase in the budget as well.
Totally understand that, appreciate that additional information. But the size of the budget is not necessarily the issue here. Is the fact that these things weren't processed? Am I misunderstanding that?
It's both.
It's both.
Yes.
So when we were saying, I remember that transportation was going to be $50 million. We budgeted for 44. Is that what I'm hearing?
As you recall, last spring, some group came in to do an analysis with the Solano, and they found ways to reduce costs that was supposed to cover the increase in the 7th and 8th grade and the mileage thing. I'm not sure what happened with that, but
I think it didn't work.
No, it was a bad study.
And the other part was the staffing. So so it was twofold. So and that person had been here was a problem prior to in the same area. So he's moved on.
Good one, Brandon, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, I just a quick comments. So I think two things that came to mind for me for this is this. That's one, we're talking about we made a change to how we were going to do buses that first day we knew didn't work. So this is that we needed more buses and needed more routes to meet the need. And at that point, nothing changed about the original contracts. So therefore, we asked more, which should have been done at that point as a review and amendment of the contracts. As a result, at some point along the way, when we expired the amounts of the original contracts, nothing else was getting processed. And so on one end, there's that aspect of that they should have reached out and said, hey, we're not getting any more money, what's going on with this? The other end is our end to say, hey, we amended what we asked for. Where's the contract negotiation discussion around that part that I guess is in the future you're going to be better about? Yeah, like in the future we're not going to have, we have to amend something that we already have currently contracted. Not just amending what we're asking for, but also then talking about what is this cost associated with it and getting that kind of amended agreement at that point.
so several years when we went to a 90-day appropriation, did it 2 years in a row, got into a very bad habit of creating a small contract to start the year with, and then amending as we go. So we have one department who's amended the same contract 11 times. So we have to get out of that practice because this is what happens. People forget to go back. There is all of our areas, finance, transportation, there's room for improvement through this whole process. We should have been more diligent on digging into the deepness of, we're not seeing movement in the financials. That $13 million worth of invoices should have been communicated sooner. There's a whole lot of improvement that can happen, and we're putting some steps in place to avoid that from happening.
I'm very interested in improvement, but I'm also very concerned about accountability. We always seem to have a reason why things are going wrong. And I'm concerned about that, and it goes through 3 administrations, frankly, especially as it pertains to transportation. And multiple vendors and whatever. I just, it certainly isn't up to the board to amend the contract. But I still don't understand why things don't get processed. Is there no one in transportation that's responsible for financial aspects of what it is that they're doing?
So,
Assuming we had the internal auditor person do this, 3 years ago, look at transportation and make all kinds of recommendations. It would seem to me, since I have a lot of trust in her, that some of those things must not have gotten done if we continue, because I know we asked, okay, is this the last amount of money for this previous fiscal year for transportation? So what we see coming up is going to be this coming year, and just I'm concerned as to a fix. I'm not into improvement, I want a fix.
so the director of the department several years ago, under either Mary Ronan or Laura, I can't remember which superintendent was in place, asked for and received senior accounting tech, which is not normal to have those in specific departments. They're typically in the treasurer's office. I fought that and lost because I wanted to be able to provide guidance and supervision. The person they put into place left the district. They brought in a BACO contractor who they fired this year because this started happening, I believe. But then I don't know what happened about picking up that work and who was responsible after that. But there was a terminated relationship because of the performance.
So we're going to get somebody that can perform this function in that office?
The
This
answer,
is $50 million.
well, the answer would be yes. This person, the person in terms of this, and it's the same person that Jen is referencing, that was in the department last year, which at the end of the year, it was also determined that between he and the person that was interim director, there were invoices that just had not been processed. They hadn't been pulled down, they hadn't been printed off, they hadn't been put in, they hadn't been processed. There was conversation with him at the beginning of the year about that and about a check and balance for that. It wasn't until the contractor started reaching out to us that we even realized, which the follow-up for the director, the current director of transportation was the same, and that's a different conversation. But it just was not happening. And so in terms of, I agree, we've had the conversation now that we do believe that the transportation budget is one that is large enough that you do need a person dedicated to do that, just like we have the food services doing that work. But that person should be under finances, so that there's also the oversight from finances in terms of what that work looks like. So we're not making a recommendation now that the position has gone away, but that the position is actually in with the treasurer, but solely responsible to working with transportation, number one, and then the process updates and improvements to make sure that we're able to cross-reference the really on a monthly basis, the invoices that we should be receiving versus what we actually do, so that there's a check and balance on a monthly basis versus waiting until the end and realizing that we have a problem.
That's one more. Yes. We can two more, because we checked with all of the other vendors to see if we are current with them.
Based on everything that I have, the answer for that is yes. Which the increase that we're asking for now, if I'm accurate, is not just for the one, but it's making sure that we are able to do the oversight for the rest of the year. So let me look again to make sure. And summer scholars, sorry.
And summer scholars transportation.
Correct. Transportation.
Yeah, he's spending about $1 million.
Transportation.
The other piece then, this is the last question. I think we talked about it briefly, and I probably wasn't clear, and we can't make assignments or whatever like this, but I think it still is very valid for the board to see the actual cost of transportation for every single vendor, for every single kind of service. That we need to know how much it's costing to transport, not just Yellow and Metro, but within those. I mean, special needs kids, our kids experiencing homelessness, those kids, all the money we spend because we are giving somebody, rightfully so, I'm sure, individual educational program because they need curb to curb. I think we've got to see the full cost broken down, itemized, so that we fully understand.
So we did do that,
Good.
but now I met with Chris today to ask him, because we found those other invoices, want them to make sure that it's holistic before we repost it again.
So that will go down to even how much money we're spending on ambulances that are moving dramatically fragile.
We don't have ambulance.
Okay, so that's the zeros.
Yes.
You won't have an ambulance on the list, but you have the list buses that are there.
Thank you.
Other discussion on the treasurer's report? Dr. Conley?
This is a $20 million ask. Yes. Looking at the thing, it's 19.
The amendment is 20 million, yes, but the increase in the budget was about 9.
And we're taking the money from, that's what I understand. Money from just the decision
So-
from last year's general
No, from the current year,
year.
so we've closed purchasing, for this year, so we can start closing books, right? Because we have to process all these purchase orders. So there's still about $18 million that's in the budget but unallocated, so it's not encumbered and it's not reserved for salaries or anything. That would normally just go to the cash balance. So we're using that money to make.
And having been in the town halls and understood a little bit about how this works, we need to keep a specific amount on reserve.
So there's a cash balance requirement, yes, in the 5-year forecast for the general funds.
Does this impact that at all?
If we didn't have to do it, the cash at the end of the year would be bigger, but we're still going to meet, because you're going to see the 5-year forecast at finance committee, we're still going to meet the 3-year window.
That's around 11 million, roughly. That amount that needed to be.
Well, the requirement is to stay positive for the 3-year, the current year, and then the 2 forecasted years. That's what they look for. They typically say, the rule of thumb is about 2% of your prior year revenue. About 11%.
So my concern, because I think if we have to pay our bills, we have to pay our bills. I definitely want to do that. But historically, having been a vendor with CPS years ago, there has been the reputation that we have a problem paying our bills timely. So this is not a new conversation. I think it is a magnified conversation because transportation has been such a debacle for this year and the past few years in different ways. But I too am looking for accountability because this, to me, just as a layperson looking at this from TV, this is ridiculous. Transportation is a mess. Why have we not put more eyes on this so that we do have this? This should be the one department that has the most accountability, eyes, everything, because it is such a mess in my mind. So I am really interested in what process is so that moving forward does not happen, or at least can't be zero instances, but it can be better because historically this has just been our problem, and we're getting a really bad reputation in the community as far as not paying bills. So I would really like for us to look at and not an assignment, but some sort of idea on how this can be better.
Thank you, Dr. Marshall. Other discussion before that? Would you like to call vote this?
Ms. Bolton?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Craig?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes.
President Lindy?
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. I need a motion to recess into executive session to consider preparations for bargaining and employment of a public official. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Morosky.
I
Several other
need
people.
this. I clearly heard.
All of those.
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Hoffman?
Yeah.
Mr. Morosky?
Yes.
Mrs. Weinberg?
Yes.
President Lindy?
Yes. Thank you.